to explain to my kids what I do and why it's important to me. That I work on innovation at the intersection of business and government, an innovation connector, if you will. And when I bring up technology as it relates to them, how TikTok shortens attention spans or blue light makes it hard to sleep, their way of tuning me out is to call me a boomer. Stop being a boomer, Mom. And the defensive part of me says, do you know what a boomer is? Nana is a boomer, as if that's bad. I'm Gen X, as if they don't know. They just look at me like I'm mom-splaining Snapchat to them. The thing is, they're not that different from the young talent that we're competing to hire, who want to work on cutting-edge technologies at cutting-edge companies rather than in government on national security missions. They think government is a boomer. We need to change these perceptions and elevate the reputation of government. Government works on foundational research that leads to breakthrough. Government takes on the nation's toughest challenges and protects our democracy. And democracy is a cause in which everyone has a role to play. In 1967, my father went to Vietnam to fly helicopters for the US Army. The hardest part for my mother was not waiting for him to come home. It was waiting in isolation. Many of the people around her didn't have loved ones away at war. So she was tied to the mission in a way that others were not. Today, democracy feels like that to me. It's something that those who are working on it every day or fighting for it feel, while others may not fully comprehend. Others may take it for granted. It was something I took for granted until I came to a new understanding about the gap between people on the outside of government and people on the inside. See, part of how I think we do defense differently is by talking about defense differently, to make the work of democracy more accessible and relatable to those on the outside and more connecting and unifying to those on the inside. Innovation is a way to create a common language. And the idea of innovation for public good, innovation that's good for people, good for business, and good for national security, is a way to bring us together as a nation. How did I come to lean into this idea of innovation for public good? Well, I've never been that interested in studying just one body of work. I've always been more drawn to the intersection of things. Engineering, anthropology, management consulting were all mechanisms through which I learned to make connections and solve problems. Solving problems to me is most interesting when the unexpected happens. And the unexpected happens, I've found more often, when you connect to people who don't think like you. The truth is, I've never been fully satisfied working exclusively in government or industry. In one, the pace was exciting, but the purpose wasn't as clear. In the other, the mission was the primary motivator, but getting things done felt painful. It was always my hope to find or create opportunities to harness the best of both, and what I think of as a radical collaboration between industry and government, bringing public sector objectives together with private sector innovation engines. So when the opportunity came in my company to create a new sort of organization that would work across both industry and government, I was excited. I thought, this is the perfect job for me. I had grand plans and big ideas for how I was going to bring industry people to government missions in new ways, influence government to move more efficiently like industry. It turns out some of these plans were a bit idealistic, but what I learned along the way was sobering. The first thing I learned from my friends in government is how critical the mission is. Today, threats to democracy are real and profound. This chart was the clearest illustration of that to me. The blue line is the US's share of global research and development investment compared to other countries. And the red line is China's share. While the US leads the world in global research and development investment, its share continues to decline because of the faster increase of other countries, namely China. Today, the US and China make up 50% of the global research and development investment. 30 years ago, China was just 3%. China is a country on a serious mission. I've always been passionate about innovation, but I've never been as passionate about freedom and democracy in my life as I am today. Once you know things, you can't unknow them. And I find it both terrifying and reassuring how critical technology is to our success as a superpower. Because chips are the new oil. We have to ensure we protect them and other critical technologies. People on the outside of government don't get to see evidence of qualified threats. So their understanding is filtered through their own worldview and the media. We have to overcome this. We have to elevate the reputation of government. We have to make public good objectives and national security more top of mind for everyone. The second thing I learned is that government can't defend the country on its own. National security and economic competitiveness are more intertwined than ever before. So the chasm between business and government is dangerous. The visual that really stood out to me was to look at research and development investment in this country, broken out between public and private sector. Because if technology is key to our success as a superpower, then research and development investment is one of the most important leading indicators for how well we will fare in taking on the global challenges of the coming decade. Here I looked at how public and private sector investment was nearly the same 40 years ago, and how dramatically that's changed. The private sector has really accelerated investment, not long after Google in 2000 and in 2008 at the start of the app economy. Today, the private sector invests 3.5 times the public sector. To me, this disparity between public and private sector investment is dangerously imbalanced, which means that public good objectives are not as influential as they could or should be, that public sector missions are not as top of mind. And that's a problem, because private sector innovation happens where large companies are located. Today, here's where most of the innovation happens in America. More than half the country is missing out. We need a radical collaboration of industry and government to ensure that we sow the seeds of prosperity more equitably. Another effect of heavy private sector investment with less public sector influence is the trend towards outsourcing. We've seen this happen across a number of different industries, but for complex critical technologies like semiconductors, our supply chains become an Achilles heel. This is the global supply chain for manufacturing semiconductors and assembling them in a microelectronics product. You can see that our products depend on processes that exist around the world, particularly in Asia. And I was shocked to learn that when you consider all the processes that go into making semiconductors, the most complex ones involve up to 70 international border crossings. And in 2019, all 6 of the new semiconductor fabs opened globally around the world outside of the United States, with 4 of them being built in China. Today, Taiwan produces 60% of the world's supply of semiconductors and 90% of the most sophisticated ones. These vulnerabilities led lawmakers to passing the CHIPS and Science Act of 2022. Part of this bill appropriates $52 billion for revitalizing the semiconductor industry in America. But what I think is even more awesome is that $52 billion of public sector spend has sparked the announcements of over $200 billion in private sector innovation. And you can see that the increase in government spending and influence has created a more equitable distribution across the country. In fact, something I've been working on is to build an alliance that can help to connect these investments and align them with public good objectives while also considering private sector needs. It's a work in progress, but I'm hopeful that a radical collaboration that bridges the gap between public and private sector, between industry and government, is possible. This is what innovation for public good looks like. And it's good for people, good for business, and good for national security. Another consequence of the imbalance between public and private sector innovation was echoed in a recent study by the University of Chicago that looked at inventors and how they're increasingly becoming employed by large tech firms rather than becoming entrepreneurs. And when they do, their innovation output declines. Their compensation increases by 13%, but their innovation output declines by up to 11%. And when inventors go to large tech firms, There are fewer founder-led businesses, which means a less vibrant startup ecosystem. And so stronger private sector innovation with less public sector influence means our ingenuity is decreasing. Fewer novel ideas, less revolutionary innovation. Rather, the private sector is more focused on what I would call evolutionary innovation, the next evolution of products that already exist on a roadmap. The iPhone 12, 13, 14, Tesla's Model S, Model 3, Model X, Model Y. See what they did there? Private sector innovation is way better marketing. On the other hand, public sector innovation is more foundational and leads to breakthrough. It's better equipped to support novel ideas and critical national interests. There are many examples of inventions funded by the US government, but here are just a few of them. The Human Genome Diversity Project, smartphones, GPS, touchscreens, the internet, Google search, and mRNA vaccines. These are revolutionary, society-changing innovations funded or supported by the US government. But when people think of the greatest innovations of our time, they don't think government, they think Google. And yet, it was DARPA who funded the internet. NSF's Digital Library Initiative that led to indexing websites in the early days of the internet. And NSF and CIA, who funded Sergey Brin and Larry Page's research to create an algorithm that would rank websites by importance. In 1998, this became Google. In short, government is the birthplace of innovation. Government works on hard, complex technologies to build new things that have never been conceived of before. These are revolutionary, game-changing examples of innovation for public good. Innovation that's good for people, good for business, and good for national security. But government doesn't get the credit it deserves. The story people are telling does not match the facts. So we have to work on reputation and connection. We have to change the story. Government is not a boomer. Government is an innovator. Our country needs us now more than ever to rally a collective effort to fund innovation, to inspire radical collaborations with industry, and to build a high-performing workforce that will ensure our success as a superpower in the decades to come. Because technology is the new playing field. Innovation for public good is our strongest weapon to create a more resilient nation. This story can only become consistent across all of government with your help. Stop using acronyms and start telling stories. Use innovation to make connections. Embrace the intersections and communicate what's important to people to find common ground. Only government can lay the foundation for a high-functioning capital markets economy. Provide the mission objectives, military power, policy, and standards to accelerate and incentivize growth. Government does things no other entity can do. Stockpile anthrax antidotes, manage our airspace to keep planes from falling out of the sky, stabilize financial markets. We need to make government the hero of the technology story. Government is not a boomer. Government is a superhero. Wonder Woman worked in government. Batman and Iron Man were defense contractors. The best advocates for a strong and unified government are you, the people tied to the mission. You are the brand ambassadors who can rally the public and industry to support government's greatest ambitions, to protect freedom and democracy. You are the bridge builders. You are the connectors. You are at the intersections because you know that innovation for public good looks like this.